y'all. So I want to talk about this deal. And I want, so Misha, we're just going to do kind of like an interview type style. And I want you to kind of give a background as to how you got into the group, you know, your original thoughts, you know, where you're from, and, you know, just a little bit about yourself first, and then we can dive into the breakdown of the actual deal.
Okay, got you.
Let me see if I can.
So are you asking me the questions, or am I just
You can, okay, so how did you find the Ladies Wholesaling Real Estate Group?
Okay, so I have been doing my own research. You know, I have been looking at videos and stuff on YouTube for a while. It was a couple months, you know. So, you know, I was, you know, taking my little information down, and I was trying to, you know, self-teach myself some things, you know. But I went on Facebook one day, and, you know, I was like, God, I wish I could find somebody to help me with this, you know. And one time I went on Facebook, and your little group popped up, like it was a little tab, you know. So I was like, oh,
Wow.
okay. I was like, maybe it's, you know, I don't know if it's real or not. So, you know, I don't know, but I'm going to try it just to see, you know. So I clicked on the tab, and it came up. It was like, you know, free 30-day challenge. And I was like, oh, no, ain't no way. That's not free. I was like, ain't nothing free. So I was like, okay, whatever. But I was like, okay, let me just try, you know. So, you know, signed up for the course. You know, you sent the messages through the through messages through the phone number. So, you know, I would go to each day, you know, each day you had to do a task. And, you know, I was like, okay, let me try. You know, I tried first, second day, you know, and it was, you covered every, you know, aspect. So I was like, okay, she not playing, you know, and she ain't asked me for no credit card information or nothing yet. So, you know, I was like, okay, it's free, you know. So yeah, that's how I, you know, stumbled upon it. And I'm so glad I did. You know, I don't regret that at all, you know. And I
Wow.
appreciate you so much for that. So
You're welcome. So just a little backstory real quick with the Ladies Wholesaling Real Estate Group. It's actually a subgroup that was created from a women's real estate investors network group. Okay, so what happened was there was a challenge that was running, not a challenge. It was a training that was running for 5 days for women in real estate, but they were talking about a wide variety of different things in the real estate industry. So they were covering wholesaling. They were talking about fix and flips. They were talking about Airbnbs. They were talking about and some more things all throughout their training. And so I was in their group, and I saw that a lot of ladies had questions about wholesaling. So I was like, well, I think it'd be cool if I start like a subgroup in addition to this group where you ladies can come over there if you want to focus specifically on this this niche in the industry. And so from there, like a lot of ladies start coming over, and I was like, okay, I want to kind of do something for you all. So I'll just start like a 30-day wholesale challenge. Because honestly, when I got started in the industry, I was like you, Misha. So I was teaching myself. I actually then found a mentor that taught me the industry and the ropes. But I actually got my first wholesale deal when I did a 30-day challenge. So somebody else had a free 30-day challenge, and I went through it. So I know the power of these challenges, especially if you are in like a if you're in a group and that momentum, everybody's posting like I did this day, I did this. So you're seeing other people active and doing the challenge. And I was able to close my first deal. So my first deal wasn't as large as yours. So mine was like $6,500 some odd dollars or whatever. Because at that time I was so stuck on getting just like a $5,000 deal. I thought that was just a thing. But so from that point on, I started coaching women. I have another group that's called the Creating Wealth Society. So I've always had an interest in teaching, and that's my passion. My passion is teaching, educating, pouring back into the ladies and making sure that they are operating in this industry. It's a male-dominated industry for one. So I wanted to make sure that we highlight more women in the industry. So I decided to put myself out there and be like, hey, let's go ahead and get this challenge set up. And I'm just gonna roll with it. And one thing I can say about you, Misha, is that I remember when we had to do the Driving for Dollars app, right? Well, we had the app, the Driving for Dollars, and I remember you did like a screen record. You screen recorded how it worked. So I looked and I was like, she's not playing. So to me, that was like everything, because I'm like, she's out here and she's applying these steps. So can you talk about how you actually came across this property?
Um, I came across it. At the time I was driving for dollars. So what I told myself was, you need to go home with at least, 2 or 3 pages of, addresses. So I went out and I was like, okay, I'm committed. I'm gonna have to get a couple. So I got up. I think I got about 100 addresses on there at the time. Um, so then, I found the properties or whatever. And, I started calling, boom. I was like, okay, I'm not going to waste no time. I went right home and I started calling. So I called and called and called. And then I came up on this one man, right? So he answered the phone and he's like, I'm not interested. And he hung up the phone. So I was like, okay, it didn't bother me. I just, I was like, okay, let me move on. Let me go to the next one. So lo and behold, he calls me back and he said, well, how much can you give me for it? And
Wow.
I was like, okay. I was like, so you interested? He was like, yeah, but you got to give me top offer. I'm not taking no less than, I believe it was 55 or something like that thousand. Yeah, it was no less than that. And I was like, okay. I was like, I'm gonna call you back and see what I can offer you. He wanted 70, I think, or something like that.
Wow.
So yeah, I was like, okay, I'm gonna call you back. I'm gonna get some information on the property. I asked him what repairs and things like that it needed. Then he was like, and then yeah, I told him I was gonna call him back. So boom, I called him back. He didn't answer. Okay. But the thing is, I was not going to be able to offer him 70, thousand what he was wanting, because it was so much that needed to be done to the property. So, he texted me instead and he was like, what's your offer? So I shot him the offer, which was like 55, and he was like, deal. He took the offer. And I was shocked. Like, I was really shocked. I didn't think he was gonna take that because he was stern. Like, and
So
he is.
were you nervous when he called back to say, what's your
Um,
offer? Were you like nervous at any point of that conversation with that seller?
I was nervous, but I tried my hardest not to show it. Um, I was very nervous because I'm not really the, type to really. Oh, I was nervous because I felt like what God did was give him to me as a challenge, because he was very challenging. So I was like, okay, I honestly, I accepted it. And I was like, okay, this is his personality. This is what I'm going to have to deal with. So I was nervous. So, but at the same time, I was like, okay, I'm gonna just go along with but I kind of started to learn him, like what would tick him off, and what would he would be willing to communicate about. He liked the text. He didn't like to talk over the phone. So I was like, okay. So I kind of figured out how to deal with him after that. So
Okay. So how did you come up with your calculation? So at that point when you were like, okay, let me call you back, let me figure out some things, what was that next step like for you?
okay, so boom. So I looked it up on Redfin. Well, they have Zillow, for comps. You can run it on Zillow, Redfin, or that website you gave us as well. So I couldn't find any comps in that area because no houses have been renovated in that area recently. So not even within the last year, I believe. So I was like, okay, what am I going to do? So I just took the square footage. I took the bedrooms and the bathrooms, and I just put houses sold near that area, and I put it in the filters. And they had around the same features.
Right.
And I was like, okay, so I'm gonna find at least 2 or 3. And then 2 or 3 did pop up. They wasn't in the neighborhood, but they was close by. So I was like, okay, she did tell us, find what's closest to you. So I went out for that after that.
So so when he said that deal, he said, okay, 55,000.
Yeah.
What were your thoughts at that point?
um I was like, I started freaking out because I'm like, okay, he accepted the offer. What do I do next? You know, I'm like, I don't know what I honestly, I know what I'm doing, but I don't know. But you know what it is? It's like with wholesaling, it's so much more than what they portray it as, you know, especially on like YouTube and stuff like that. Like it's so much more to it. So it was like more steps that had to be took. But once I asked you things, you gave me a clear understanding of, boom, this go next, boom, this go next, you know. So I was nervous, but after asking you, I told you like he gave me an offer, and then that's when you told me to go ahead and pitch it,
Right.
So
So so just to catch you ladies up, she did the joint venture form. And so the joint venture form kind of gave me all the information I needed as to these are the comps, and this is the price we're looking at. How did you come up with your comps? And the reason why I do that, ladies, because I have a lot of females that follow me on different platforms, right? And males too. And so they know that I'm an investor, so they're constantly throwing addresses at me like, hey, I saw this or I saw that, and I can't step away from doing the business to chase a possible deal. So I came up with the opportunity to do a joint venture, but I only do joint ventures for people that understand the industry, because I can't chase a deal that's not a deal. Okay. So
right.
the joint venture form actually cuts out a lot of the work that I will have to take away from doing deals to go in, the information is there for me, is what I'm trying to say. So Misha did that. She went through the form, she filled it out. I asked for the comps, 3 comps that she got. How did you pull the comps? She went through all of that. And I was like, okay, good. Now we can move to the next step. So I kind of coached her as to what was the next step to do, which was to post out on social media about the contract for assignment. So can you tell us about that step that you did? Like how long did it take you once you put that post out there for you to get a reply back from a buyer?
It took, I can't remember how long it took. It didn't take long, but it definitely, you have to, with that, you have to leave it up long enough to give people time to see it, and depending on who's busy and, who's, available at the time and what time of day it is, you just post it and you just wait, and, I waited a minute. And then that's when I told you, I was like, well, it's about, I believe at the time it was like 7 people who said they was interested. So yeah, it took a little minute, but it didn't take long. It didn't take too long. But it really, I feel like if you have a good deal, you're going to see some people pop up, and you have to also be aware of those people that do pop up, because sometimes there are other wholesalers that might be trying to get your deal. So you just really have to, like you told me, look on their profiles and like get a feel for them as far as the buyers, don't just go off of anybody, just basically try to, figure it out. So yeah, it took a
Absolutely.
minute.
And I know that. Okay, so let me ask you this: where did you post your ad at?
I posted it on Facebook Marketplace.
Facebook Marketplace. Okay.
Was it? No, it was a group. No, I'm sorry, not Facebook Marketplace. The group. It was a cash buyers group. It was
Okay.
about 2 different ones. Yeah, it was 2 different ones for the area that I'm in. So
Awesome. So yeah, so I do want to tell you guys, whenever you are posting on social media, there are going to be some wholesalers. So what I typically do when I put a contract for assignment, I say no wholesaler. So I do add that piece in mind so that they know, because it can get very messy with wholesalers. Like they're trying to do what you're doing and then they want a piece of it, and it can get really messy. It's called daisy chain, which I tell anybody in coaching to kind of do a direct to buyer and not to wholesalers. So so explain to me, what was your process when you start getting hits on that particular ad? What was your thought process at that point?
I kind of rushed a little bit into thinking that, I was like, okay, I found the buyer, and I thought that was it, I thought like, okay, they want to buy, they say they're interested and they do want to buy. But, once you get their information and you start communicating with them, they'll learn certain things about the property, and they may, back out and be like, well, I'm not interested, or they may have certain things that the property needs, so if it's not up to a certain par, then they're not interested. So you have to make sure that they're interested, your property, you have a good property, and you have a good set price for it as well. And I was ready to negotiate. So it's a lot more to it at that as well. So
so the person that finally reached out that you determined was a solid buyer.
mhm.
How did that go? How did that conversation go?
Okay, so there was a lady who commented, and she said, I know a buyer, who is looking for the person that owns that property. So I'm like, okay. So she gives me his information. She sends me his phone number, whatever. So I call him and I'm like, um, I have X amount, tell him the property name and whatever, the address. And I'm like, this is the price that I'm offering, this is the offer price or whatever. And, he was like, okay, he would take it. And crazy enough, he owned the apartments that's right beside of the property. So he wanted to use it for amenities for the apartments. So he was like more than willing. And oh my goodness. It's
So
just so
basically, what
crazy.
happened? The house that she came across, it had an apartment complex. So when she told me that, I was like, "Oh my goodness!" So
Yes.
it had an apartment complex right beside this house. Okay, there was an investor. He was in California, right?
Hmm.
So the buyer was from California. He had just had put the apartment complex under contract, so he was set to close on that apartment complex. And so this house that's set right beside it, he's like, okay, I want that too because I can use that for amenities because I'm just closing on this. I don't know how big is the apartment.
There it's a pretty big apartment complex.
Okay.
Um, yeah, it's pretty big. It's like it's on the side of the like right behind the house. But you can tell that it's they kind of attached a little bit, but they're on the same side. So and
Wow.
he was like, I've been looking for, that's what she said. She said, we've been looking for the person that owns that house. And we couldn't figure out who it was. And and she was just, excited that, she was super excited. So
Wow. So it was timing because they couldn't figure out who owned the property, but they wanted the property because it's set right beside the apartment complex that they were set to close on. So it worked out because the offer, Misha and I talked about different numbers, to kind
mhm.
of put out there. And I was like, well, play around with it, put this out there. She really put it out there, right? So I forget. I don't have the contract. I had the hood. I might have to go get the hood. Um, but so when she put the number out there, the the buyer had some additional questions or they wanted to close. Well, let me back up. Once we talked about the numbers first, we then wanted to put this property under contract first with the seller. Okay.
Yeah.
So I want you to talk about this process of what the seller was demanding
Oh my
and
God.
how that whole process went with the initial assignment contract.
Okay. So with the initial contract, he wanted, I can't remember how it went. He wanted, I believe, what was it that happened? It was, I can't remember that
He
first.
wanted he wanted the EMD deposit.
Non-refundable, yes. He wanted a non-refundable deposit. So, which means if we was to back out, we wouldn't get the money back. If the buyer was to back out or anything like that. So, and that's the first time I've ever heard of anybody even requesting anything like that. Non-refundable. Like, you know, on the contract, it'll state that it's refundable, that you can refund the deposit. I mean, the seller can refund it back to you. So, you know, I was like, Andrea, he wants a non-refundable. And she was like, just put it on there, just add it on there. And, that's fine. That'll be okay. So, she eased my nerves on that because
Yeah, I think
he
he
was not
wanted,
playing.
was it 2,000? And I was
He
like, no,
wanted
see if he'll take
2000.
1,500 or something like that.
He wanted 2000 up
And
front.
he
He wanted
wanted it up front.
2000. Yes, and he want at the time, like he wanted you to take the money out your pocket and give it to him. You know, he's one of those types. So,
Yeah,
but you know,
I don't know if he's an attorney. Did he say he was an agent
he
or?
he used to do real estate, but he's trying to get back on into real estate. So, he's definitely an intelligent man. He knows how to kind of maneuver his way through with the situation. But I had to basically tell him like, look, you're not gonna get over on me. You're
Yeah,
not
so
gonna
it
get
was
over
real
on
because
us.
normally what happens, he's aware in the industry, right? So, and
Mm-hmm.
ironically, my first deal was done with a real estate agent, right?
Mm.
And he required, I think it was $1,000 from me, and I'm like, I had to call my mentor, like, he want $1,000. Like, y'all telling me I can come in with no money, no credit. Like, what am I supposed to do at this point? Because typically
Right.
what happens is if they do request that amount, I typically get that from my end buyer. So I make my end buyer put that amount up and put it into escrow. And so
Exactly.
he was adamant to be like, okay, I want you. One, he didn't want to do a DocuSign with the contract. He wanted her
Mm-hmm.
to physically come into the office. And I'm like, oh
And
my goodness,
yeah,
can he sign the DocuSign? And she's
yeah.
like, no, he wants me to
He
come to the
he
office.
wanted me to physically show my face, and he didn't want to sign it on through the DocuSign, even though he knew exactly how to do it. But that's not what he wanted. He wanted to basically do things his way. Even down to signing the documents. And at first it was like confusing, but like I said, once I figured out how his personality was, he was older, and some of them are set in their ways. So I was like, okay, that's just how he is, and it's okay. Just if he wants to print it out, he wanted to print it out and write it on the paper. We did that. So I was like, okay.
Yeah, so when
So
she got to, I was like, okay, well, call me if you need me. If you get to the office and he starts saying something that you don't really, agree with or you're not familiar with, just let me know and I'll
yeah,
talk to him. So when you got to the office, he was requesting the EMD still.
yes, he
He
wanted.
wanted the EMD out of pocket, while he was signing the agreement. So, um, what happened? You call? Did you text or call or something?
I think I called you. I
And you was like,
called
he's not
you.
having it.
Yeah, I said he just not having it. I was like, he just not having it. I was like, I don't know what to do. And you was like, you just took your sauce and you got on the phone, and you talked to him or whatever, and he came down a couple notches, but I liked how you made conversation with him and found something y'all had in
In
common,
common. Right.
and
So
he
it's
came
important to
right
kind of
down.
connect with these type of individuals on whatever level you can. So it just so happens Misha's in a town about 30 minutes from me, right? So
Hmm.
the guy that she would, or the seller, in other words, he's just, the town is, I know people in the town. I'm gonna put it that way. So when I spoke to him, and he was like, "Well, I want the money because people play all the time, and I want to make sure you guys are serious." And that's mostly why they ask. They want to make sure that you're for real in the transaction.
Hmm.
And he was like, "Because I want the money up front." And so when I got on the phone with him, I'm like, "Hey, I understand that you want money up front, but at the same time, we're taking a risk too because sellers can also back out." I said, so just to be fair, what we're going to do, and I told him, I said, we're going to close on your property, so you don't have to worry about that. But I am
Hmm.
going to require that this money be sent to the attorney into escrow. So the attorney's going to hold this, but we're going to
Hmm.
close, right? And so
Hmm.
as he's talking, he's just going off still. And I'm like, oh, you're in Winston or whatever. Are you familiar with my friend? And I know this big guy down there. He was in commercial real estate. And he was like, oh yeah, I know him. And we da-da-da-da. So, we built up that rapport. And I was like, yeah,
Hmm.
he and I were gonna do like a talk show at one point and da-da-da.
Hmm.
And so I stress this a lot. I'm big on relationships in this industry in real estate.
Hmm.
Relationships are currency. I network a lot. I'm plugged in a lot. I'm plugged into a lot of
Yeah.
networks, high seasoned investors. So that's kind of how I met him. And so because he knew that I knew this person, it gave him that sense of assurance, like, okay, they're probably for real, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the things that I did do, and I'll tell you guys this, that if you have a seller that has one property, just be like, okay, do you have any other properties? And that's kind of how we ended that conversation. I'm like, you have any other properties you want to sell? He was like, well,
Mm-hmm.
no. Then he was like, well, yeah, I have this one. And then there's another one too. So we can kind of work that all the way in, but that's another
Mm-hmm.
story.
Yes.
But so long story short, building up that rapport with that seller allowed him to be like, okay, he put his guard down to say, okay, I don't have to have the money out of pocket right now at signing. It's going to be an escrow. She was able to take the agreement and have him sign it on the spot. And so from
Yes.
there, I was like, okay, we're good to go. We already have a buyer that's interested. So now our original contract, whenever we're going under contract, we typically say that we're going to close within 30 days with the seller. So now the
Yeah.
seller is saying, okay, we're going to agree to close within this time. We have that agreement. And now we have to get the agreement from that second party, which is the buyer. So in this instance, what ended up happening is the person that reached out to me, to Misha, she was a real estate agent. And so she was like, hey, I know the people that bought the, the apartment complex. I'm gonna give you their
Mm-hmm.
number. Blah, blah, blah. So Misha, you spoke with him, right? And he said he wanted to close in 45 days.
Yes. Yes.
So
But
we actually, okay, so this was an issue at this point because now we're telling the seller we're going to close in 30 days, but the buyer is saying we're going to close in 45 days because he wants to close close to the time frame in which he's going to close for the apartment. He wants everything to kind of go together. So what
mm-hmm.
I did do was like, okay, now we know that we have this buyer, so the agreements were sent out, but we did require that deposit. So we asked him for the non-refundable deposit so that way we can get it into the attorney and escrow. Now the issue or the challenge came in because now we have somebody saying they want 45 days and we have somebody looking for their money in 30 days, right?
Yes.
So I'm like, that's not going to work. We have to go back to the seller and tell the seller that we're going to need some time to get this deal closed because the buyer's not coming in 30.
Right.
So how did, okay, because that was like a whole, it's a whole thing with that. So what did you observe or what was your thoughts when we had the contract locked up with the seller? Like where was your mind at that point? I mean, not the seller, but the buyer. Were you like, this is happening or I'm just.
Yeah, it was like kind of surreal for me. I was like, I just didn't expect for it to kind of happen the way it did. And at the same time, I was just like, oh my goodness, I just couldn't believe it was, but I knew we wasn't, I always tell myself, don't get your expectations too high because we're not finished yet. We're on the way, but we're not finished. So I didn't try to I try to hold my emotions, so I wouldn't disappoint myself because it would hurt. I'm like, okay, it's happening, but I didn't want to get too hyped,
Exactly. Because I'm telling you, a deal is not a deal until you have a check. Okay, anything can happen.
Right.
A deal can fall apart at the closing table.
That's right.
So within this time, we actually had it locked up with the buyer. So now we had to kind of go back to the seller, be like, hey, well, we're not going to close on this day because our finance department. I said something about finance department. They're going to need some additional time, whatever the case may be. So now he comes back and he's like, well, if you want to extend this contract, I'm going to need an additional $500.
Yes.
So I'm like, oh my goodness, because we've already had the $1,500 from the buyer that's in escrow. So now he wants $500 more. So I'm like, okay, it's fine. I will put up the money because I know, we're pretty much we're going. Okay. So I'm like, I'll just put it up. And then if I was like, I'll send it to him just to keep him at ease. Okay. So I did do that. Now this is not your typical type of deal, but you'll find that every wholesale deal is different. Okay. So I did go ahead and just give him the $500 and I was just like, we're just going to keep him calm because we already know how he is. So I'll send it. It's fine. So now what happened was I was in contact with the buyer, and I'm asking the buyer, like, there's no way you can close in 30 days. He was like, no, I prefer to close during this time because of the apartment. Okay. So now what began to happen is he's like, I'm working with a lender to get funding for the house. And now I'm like, because typically we ask for cash buyers. So he was like, because I'm working with a lender, we're going to need an inspection. And I'm just like, this is going to be drawn out. So he had an inspector call. He had an inspector call, or an appraiser call, and I think he went out to the property or whatever. But what ended up happening is he said, well, it's something about the appraiser. He was like, long story short, for not the appraiser, but the lender. He said, my lender is going to want to see the original contract. So the buyer knew that we were assigning our interest in the property, right? I have never had anyone say, I need to see the original contract. So when they see the original contract, that means that they want to see what we have it on the contract for with the seller. So typically they're going to know what our spread is. Okay.
Yeah.
So I was like, it's fine. You know, I'm going to just go ahead and send it to him because he's already aware that he has signed the assignment contract. He's an investor. So I sent it over to him. So now he's seeing that the profit is like $22,000, and he was okay with it. He was just like, okay, I'll send it over to the lender, blah blah blah. We were set to close originally on May the 2nd. Right?
Yeah,
that was the original closing date. We didn't close until May the 5th. So okay, Misha. So now I posted in the group. I'm like, congratulations, Misha has the deal under contract. Because it was moving along. So I noticed that the person that originally inboxed Misha, which was the real estate agent, she friended me and she friended her. And I knew this because Misha sent me a screenshot of the conversation with her and the agent. So Misha went on her post and she was like, closing on this deal, and gave the address. And I was like, take it down, because we want to make sure, because I don't think she knows that it's being assigned or whatever the case may be. And I was like, I don't want anything to go left with this deal. I don't want them to try to go behind us or anything like that. So I was like, just, take it down for now until we can get, the deal across the finish line. So this particular time, tell me what happened, Misha. What was your thoughts like with me in the process of this whole thing? Because I know me and Misha was going back and forth, like we were going back and forth on Messenger, and I'm trying to convince her, like, Misha, come on, like, we're almost there. Like, she was almost ready to back out the deal because she thought that I was working with the other person to go around her to take the deal. Yeah. So can you explain your process, like your thought process with that?
Okay, so I uploaded it onto my Facebook. I was like, oh God. And then she was like, you gotta make sure that she's not gonna have him back out if she knows how much we're gonna get from the assignment fee. And I was like, oh my God. I hurried up and deleted the post. And I was like, God, she added me as a friend, so I hope she didn't see it. Then I was like, well, if she added me and added Andrell, I was like, is her and Andrell working together? I was like, oh, what are they conspiring against me? And, it started getting, it started feeling like Scooby-Doo or whatever. So I was like, okay, let me figure this out. I'm an overthinker. So I started investigating. And then I was like, something just telling me, like, she don't have nothing to do with that. I was like, no, that's not her. So I asked her straight up. Like, I asked Andrell, I was like, Andrell, what's going on? Because I don't know what's going on, but I don't got time for this. I said, I done came too far. I don't got time for people to be using me. And she was like, nobody using you. She was like, nobody using you. She was like, I have a big, she got me together too. She was like, I have a major reputation. I don't have to risk nothing. She said, my reputation is, I know too many people. She started throwing the books at me, y'all. She was not playing. She was on my rump, but it worked, She eased my, fears, because I'm so used to people, especially in an industry like this and online. When you're dealing with things online, people like to get over. let's just call a thing a thing. People love to scam online, so I was like, okay, what if Andrea got me this far and she gonna take me out? I was like, I just started thinking crazy, y'all. I was thinking crazy, but she reassured me and got me back on track. Like, hey, like, look, we about to get this money. You got to calm your nerves down. You just chill. Just chill. But it helped. It helped. It definitely helped. So once that happened, and then what happened after that?
Because we actually had to sign. We had to re-sign the contract.
We did.
We had to
Yes.
re-sign the contract because what did we re-sign it for? I think, the time frame in which he was to close something. We had to correct something on the contract. So all parties had to sign. I had to sign. The buyer had to sign. Misha had to sign. So it went in order. And so I signed, and then I sent it to Misha, and I'm like, Misha, you have to sign so he can sign. But during this time, she was like hesitant, like, I'm just going to back out. I don't think this is going to work. I'm like, no, you're not going to back out. We're going to close this deal. And I was like, listen, I don't even know how many. We was texting probably. It was like 1 in the morning. Like,
it was like 1 in the morning.
Messenger, like message after message after message after message. And I'm like, listen, we're going to close this deal. And I need you to sign. I need you to get the DocuSign. I need you to sign. I'm like, we're this close. And she almost just gave it up, y'all. So I was like, oh my God. But like I said, with in this industry, you definitely have to do your due diligence on people. I'm like, look, go Google me if you need to.
Yes.
Go check, like go ask for references, because there are some people out here in the industry that's gonna try to get over on you or blow smoke, and I'm not one of those people. And I'm like, if this girl don't get it together, we this close. Like, if she just stick with it, we're gonna get this to the finish line. So, I did reassure her, like, hey, relationships are everything to me. My name is everything to me. If my name is attached to it, I'm going to do my best to make sure everything goes through. And I'm a person of integrity. What I say I'm going to do, I'm going to do. And I have always had my people in my best interest. So I was like, we're going to get it done. Don't worry. And then at the end of the night, she's like, okay, I signed it. So she signed it. The guy was in California, so he ended up signing the contract. And now we take both of those agreements and we send it in to the attorney. Okay. So now the attorney has it. The process is starting to roll with the title search. So now we're going through title to figure out everything that's attached to the property, any type of liens. It just so happened he had IRS liens attached to the property. Which he was agreeing to pay from his profits. We agreed to pay the back taxes from our profits. But all in all, everything started going. The communication started coming from the attorney. She did her part as to get in contact with the seller, get in contact with the buyer. She would email me. I would CC her on the deal. So, just making sure everything goes along smoothly. And now we're getting up to the May the 2nd, right? And so now here comes the buyer. The buyer's like, oh, we're going to need an extension, another one, because he's like, the lender is taking too long to approve everything. So we're just going to do a cash closing. But in order for us to do the cash closing, we're going to request now that you push the date back to May the 5th. I'm like, if we go back to this man one more time and tell him we need another extension, it's not going to be good.
Yes.
So the way that I kind of did this at this point was, I'm like, okay, think about it this way. We have an agreement with the seller saying that we're going to close by May the 2nd, right? If we don't close on May the 2nd, our contract is voided with him. Okay.
Yes.
And I was telling Misha, like, ooh, it's a dangerous spot because I don't want the buyer now to go around us knowing that our contract expired and try to, make a deal directly with the seller. So there are ways around that. We filed what's called a memorandum of contract. We can file that to keep somebody from going around us, but that's only valid if the contract is valid. So I didn't want to go back to the seller to have him re-sign something else for the third time. I didn't want to irritate him. So basically how I worded this, and I told Misha, I'm like, because the attorney also had to, she had to work on some additional liens. So when the seller came back and the seller said, hey, can we please get an extension for May the 2nd? And I came back and I'm like, listen, if you want to do an extension for May the 5th, I'm sorry, how much can you send us now? right? So
Right.
I let him tell me, like, I need another, non-refundable just for you wanting to push your date back. And so he was like, okay, I can send 5,000. I said, you got to get that into the attorney today. So he
Yep.
was able to wire it into the attorney. The attorney had another $5,000 non-refundable. So I'm telling Misha, now he has a little bit more skin in the game. So if he backs out, at least we have the original 5,000 plus the
We had
1,500 that was already
6,500.
sent in.
Right.
So I was like, okay, I feel good because he did cooperate. He was communicating. So I'm like, okay, I don't feel like he's gonna go around. So now the seller, this was that Friday, and the seller is like, okay, we're closing on Monday. I'm like, well, the attorney is still trying to, okay, this is what the attorney told me after we agreed about the extension. She said, honestly, the extension would be good because I'm still trying to work out things with the IRS or clear up something about a judgment or something she was trying to clear up. So she was like, the 5th will actually be better. So I used that to our advantage. I talked to him and I was like, hey, we're going to close on the 5th. And he was like, I thought we were closing on the 2nd. I said, well, the attorney said that she's trying to clear up some additional judgments, but everything is fine. We're going to close on the 5th for sure. So he was just like, okay. And so when I saw that text, I was just like, yes, he's not tripping.
Yes.
We're going to close on the 5th.
Yes.
And so the day of the 5th, Misha, how was what was your thoughts and where were you at up until this point, the closing day? Like, how were you feeling?
The 5th, I woke up very paranoid. I was very paranoid because, we had finally got to that day and I was like, okay, what if he back out? What if he just decides that, okay, I don't want to do this? Because, he had extended it, within that time. And I was like, okay, and plus I've heard a lot of times where the buyer gets to the last day and they'll back out. And I was just like afraid. I was scared all day long, pasting and pasting. And I was just like, I was like, okay, 11 o'clock came. So I was like, let me try to email everybody and see if, are we still scheduling to close today? But I didn't hear anything back. So I was like, oh my God. So I was like, let me text Andrea because I was going to see what she said. She was like, yeah, everything looks like it's, it's going good. I talked to him today and everything. And I was like, wow, I sat here and I panicked, for nothing. But yeah, everything worked out. So I was nervous, but, you was like, because then I asked I seen the HUD statement. I didn't see the HUD statement until later on that day. So, I didn't know the whole time that the process had already been, going through. And then that's when you told me, you was like, just contact the attorney about, because I was trying to figure out how I would get paid, by check or by wire. He was like, just tell the attorney how you want to, ask him how you want to get paid and stuff like that. And then I messaged her. And yeah, she was like, I went ahead and agreed to come and get a check, a paper check. And I was not willing to accept it until I got the check in my hand. It still wasn't happening until I felt that check in my hand, and I was like, oh my God, it's just not, and crazy enough, the building closed I believe it was 6 p.m. was when the building closed. And I finally, because my car, a lot had went on while this was happening.
Right.
My car was messed up. I'm trying to figure everything out. I went out on a limb. Everything started like deteriorating around me. Like I started losing things. So I'm like, okay, I'm losing things because I'm, preparing for greater. You have to lose to gain. Mm-hmm. So I was like, okay. I had to get me a ride. I couldn't find nobody to give me a ride, y'all. I didn't have no money to even get on the bus. I didn't have no money for gas. I didn't have no way. But somehow my brother came and he was like, he got off from work. He was like, I'm going to just take off from work and take you. So I got there on $0. You know what I'm saying? I got there on $0. And she was like, it's ready. Here go your check. And I was like, and she opened that folder and I seen the amount on that check. Child, I'll cry real tears. Real tears. I cried. I did. I cried.
Wow. And I remember I was just like, we're closing. And I remember you texted me. You was like, the seller said he just left. I was like, okay, good. And you was like, so it's really happening. I said, it's done. If the seller was already left because the seller wanted to go in at 2 o'clock to close. And so that's kind of how it was pushed back to later that evening. And she was like, yeah, the seller said he just left. And I was like, okay, good. Well, it's done. She was like, is this really happening? I was like, it's really happening. Like, he's already, you know, he's already signed. And so then I remember later that night, I checked my inbox and I just saw you with the check. And you was like, Andrea. I was like, oh, she got her check. Because I didn't know, you know, when you were going to get it. I was just like, you know, maybe it's going to be the next day, depending on when the attorney recorded everything. But I was like, when I saw it, I was so happy. And that's what makes me happy. Like, it gives me joy to see that I can, you know, help change somebody else's life. Like, to me, that's what it's all about. Okay. So that's what I do. And I got chill bumps right now, but that's why I do what I do, because I know how real estate has changed my life. So for me to pass that on and give that feeling to somebody else, I know how that feels, you know? And so she did her part. Like, she literally said she didn't have any money to even get there, but she went through this challenge. She didn't give up. Things was falling apart around her. She had her doubts. She was about to pull back. And then she came back and closed a 5-figure real estate deal. Okay. So this is just the power of not giving up and, you know, stepping out of your comfort zone and pushing through whatever is in front of you. Just keep pushing through, because you never know what's on the other side.
You never know.
Had given up or not went out that day to did the driving for dollars, had she said, okay, she's probably scammed me and pulled back, she would never got to the victory, right? Yes. But she did. And she's right here telling you guys
that it's possible.
You say your car, something happened with the car?
My car started messing up. My tire went flat, completely flat. And I couldn't find nobody cause you know, I don't really have a lot of people, you know, I couldn't find anybody that could really come and take me to get my car situated. And I didn't have the money either. You know, I was trying the best that I could to get by, you know, and I was like, God, you know, I've been through this before, you know, but the last time it spiraled down. But I was like, you know, I have to take a risk, you know, I can't be afraid, because I'm not really a social person, you know, but I was like, I have to risk it, you know, I don't have anything to lose, you know. At some point you have to really, and it has to be within you. You can't buy determination, you know what I'm saying? You have to, you know, that's within you. You can't buy it at all. And, you know, I was like, okay, how can I talk to these people over the phone that I don't know? How can I convince them to buy their houses? You know, how can I convince them to sell? And, you know, they say cold calling, but I warm call. Okay. And I'm gonna tell y'all, this is a good tip. You warm call. What you do is you act like yourself. And don't get straight to the point. When you call these people, do not automatically be like, okay, I want to buy your house, you know, or, you know, ask them first, you know, hey, how you doing? You know, how are you doing today? You know, are you the owner of such property, you know? And, you know, I had to learn that, you know, and you taught me that too, to, like you said, build a rapport, you know, and you just can't sound like a telemarketer. You have to really, you can't sound like, because they will hang up on, just like if somebody call us sounding like spam, we hang up. So I had to think like, okay, I can't sound like those people, because it's hundreds of people that sound like that. I have to kind of stand out. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, I didn't put on no other voice but mine, you know, and I tried to soften my tone a little bit, and you know, it works. You know, it definitely works. And you know, y'all can do it, I'm telling you. And I can attest to this. I had no money. Andrea had to, and let's just be real, Andrea had to take $500 when it was time for us to put that money down. And I was like, Andrea, I don't have that type of money. You know, she went on ahead and put that money down for me, you know, and she was like, you just give me half back, you know. And that was, I had no money. Like, you know, I was trying to get by the best I could, and I have 2 babies, you know, but I was like, you know, I have to do this.
Right.
I have to do it. So,
absolutely.
Yeah. But you can do it. I'm just attesting to y'all. I had nothing, and I woke up, you know, it took me 30 to 45 days, but, you know, I held on, and I'm like, it was so worth it once the time came. It was so worth it.
Wow.
You know, it was so worth it.
Yeah.
It was worth it. And you helped me so much, like,
just to see it across the finish line. I was so excited that day. I was like, oh my God, I'm so excited for her.
Excited.
You know,
she was
it's just it's a great feeling, because like I said, I know what the feeling is like. Once you get that first check, then you know it's real. Like she said, I wasn't gonna believe it was real until I got the check in my hand.
The check in my hand. That's right. That's right.
And so, yeah. Tori says she it tears of joy.
Oh,
But yeah, I knew this was gonna be. I knew this was gonna be
oh,
good. So y'all, every deal is not gonna be easy. It's not gonna be,
it's not.
it's
It's
not gonna
not.
be cut and dry. It's not gonna be. You're gonna have to go through some trials and tribulations.
Yes,
But
but it's
if
so
you
worth
press
it.
through, you got it.
It's so worth it. And just to think, in 30 days, you can make that money on your laptop or, driving X amount. You don't have to work and slave at a job that you hate. You can have more time. Like, this is the most time in a long time I've had with my kids. And it's just like, wow, I didn't have to really work hard and come home too tired to even, do anything, So you make that type of money, you won't look back. I promise. You will not look back.
Absolutely.
You will
That's
not look back.
that's what it's all about. I told her, I was like, I got you. She was like,
Yes, she
okay. I was
did.
like, just trust me, I got you. We're gonna get it
She
done.
did. And she reassured me a lot. And I'm not gonna say I never did, but I haven't had anybody that, I'm always the person with the answers. So to finally have somebody with the answers was just like, wow. Like, you had every answer to every question. You know what I'm saying? If you wasn't sure, and it was really rarely that you wasn't sure about something, you knew, pretty much everything. But if you wasn't, she was like, I'm not sure. You didn't lie to me or
Right.
nothing like that. So
Exactly.
you was
It's
very.
a lot. It was a lot of twists and
It was
turns
a
and a lot
lot
of,
of
oh my
twists and turns.
gosh, like is they gonna
But
go? Are they gonna
I'm
go
telling y'all,
behind us? Is
that
it was
first
just
one may be your test. That first one may be your most difficult one, just to teach you all the mistakes not to make with your next.
right.
You know, that so I accepted that. Okay, it came that way because it had to happen for me to learn.
Right,
You
absolutely.
know,
That's pretty much all it is. It's just a learning lesson to get you through, especially dealing with that type of seller. How he was demanding. Okay, I need this money up front. How you would come back and
he was very demanding,
mm-hmm,
and it was times where I was afraid he was going to back out.
right,
I was so scared because he would just, you never knew some days what you was gonna get from him. But like you did, I like how you would just, keep him at a steady pace to keep
yes.
him, engaged, and it helped. It definitely helped
Yeah, she's
because
like,
I
I
don't
see
think.
how you interacting. So I kind of try to. Some of the email chains got lost because the buyer was CC me and CC the attorney and wasn't CC and Misha, so she didn't
Yeah,
get like all the threads. So some of them I had to forward back to her. But we were still working. I wanted to kind of CC her in so that she could see how the process was going, how I was talking to the attorney, how I came back and told this buyer like, hey, you want to push his date back? Okay, we need some more money, right?
yes,
So I wanted to kind
yes,
of show her exactly what to do. So that way, if you're ever in these situations again, now you can be like, okay, listen, if you want to do this, I need you to put up some cash and I need you to send it to the attorney. Anybody that's requesting the cash up front, you say, hey, no, we're going to put this in escrow. We're going to close, just reassure them. So that's a good thing too of having it, especially with your first deal. If you're not comfortable with going through it alone, partner up with somebody. Let them finish that deal for you. Let them pull
yes.
out, whatever they need to help you get through that finish line. So we had a profit on the table of 22,000. The seller, I'm sorry, not the seller, but the buyer didn't even negotiate. Okay, so
Right,
typically
yeah,
we start high when we put the asking price out there because we want to leave room for negotiation. Misha
right,
put that price out there. He said, okay. He did not
yeah.
negotiate with her. It
And
was
the way I
divine
did it was
timing from the
like,
time she took this challenge to the time she
yes,
posted to the time that this person saw it to when they reached out and she was there. Okay.
yes,
So I was like, they accepted that. And that she was like, yeah, he's in California, right? He just bought an
yeah,
apartment complex. This house is pennies to him. So I was like,
yeah,
okay, we're good. When she told me that, I was like, okay, we're fine. Okay.
yes.
So I hope this was encouraging to you ladies. It's actually an hour. We're a little over an hour now. Did you ladies have any questions? I guess we can do like a couple of minutes of questions. It's a lot of comments. So I might have to go back in and
Yeah, I hate I
go.
wasn't able to really interact with, we wasn't able to really interact much, but I guess we can, I guess. But, I just want to say from my side, I appreciate everybody for tuning in. I appreciate Andrea. Andrea, you changed my life. You know what I'm saying? Really, seriously. Like,
Absolutely.